Welcome to Launch Today, the podcast focus on what it takes to get your new business to $1 million or more in revenue, from marketing tactics to incredible guest interviews. We focus on sharing behind-the-scenes insights from masters in their field. If you want to grow the revenue for your startup or your business, you don't want to miss today, because today's guest transformed a stagnating B2B SaaS company into the definitive sector leader in just 18 months and is now throwing all that away to become someone who's launching a bevy of micro-SaaS products as a hands-on founder. Nick Jain is a Harvard MBA and former McKinsey consultant who brings an investor's mindset to transforming good SaaS companies into market leaders. As the CEO of IdeaScale, he drove EBITDA from 10% to 35%, accelerated growth, and led the company to win the Gartner Customer's Choice Award after being ranked 11th in the category just 18 months prior. And now he's launching micro-SaaS products to do his own thing and get back in the trenches. Nick, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me and for the wonderful introduction.
Thanks. So let me begin by asking, as I always do, why do you do what you do?
I think three things. Number one, you got to pay the bills ultimately, right? So you got to show up to work. I'm not independently wealthy yet. Number two is I love building stuff. As in high school, I was a carpenter. I loved seeing building buildings. Today, I love building products and companies. And number three, I like creating value. This sounds really fluffy, but I like creating value for people. I like it when I build something that makes somebody happy or is useful to them. So that gets me up in the morning, and that's why I work 1 million hours a week.
I feel you. I also like building things. No one looks at the bookshelf behind me and goes, oh, clearly a master carpenter did those. In my defense, my 8-year-old son and I built them together. But definitely, I built my office behind me, the office around me, whatever. This is in the backyard of my house. And I built it. Apparently, I'm so hipster that I built a work-from-home pod before COVID. So, yeah, there you go. Only a year before, because my twin daughters were born the year before. And I was like, my office used to be their bedroom, but you cannot work in the bedroom with twin girls. So, here we go. Anyway, interesting 3 reasons. I think finding good whys, other than just, you got to pay the dollar bills, is definitely needed. Okay. Before we go into your current, what you're building now, I'm super interested in how you take a stagnating company and make it Gartner's Customer Choice Award in just 18 months, because a lot of that mindset is also going to determine how you succeed right now. But let's begin with back then, right? What did you do to make that transformation happen?
Sure. So I spent my career basically building and transforming companies as a private equity investor. And I was hired and brought on as CEO of the software company that actually had a good product. We had people, we'd been around 12 years, but we needed to run better and really make ourselves awesome. And I think we needed to do 3. When I showed up, I recognized that there were 3 things we needed to do. Number one, our product was pretty mediocre and we needed to have an awesome product. Whether you're selling software or you're selling burgers or shoes, the most important thing is you need to have a great product or service. And so we spent a lot of time cleaning up the bugs in our product, as well as making the actual product experience really good so customers got value out of it rather than struggling to use with the product. Number 2 is we changed our marketing. We basically had no marketing and sales presence. We were going in cold calling a lot of people, and that works for a little bit, but that's really not scalable. It's really expensive and it takes a lot of time. So we built a really effective inbound marketing program that explained to customers, look, we are the best in our world. If you want to buy this product category, you should come to us. And so we ended up number 1 on Google for almost everything in our category without paying a single dollar of paid advertising, just through organic and content marketing. And number 3 is we changed how we made decisions inside. In a lot of young companies, decisions are made, or a lot of younger or smaller companies, decisions are made based on the founder's feelings or the owner's feelings or ego or whoever yells the loudest, instead of based on good analytics or good principles or ROI-based decision-making. And so we internally changed how we made decisions and how we ran experiments, from everything to which countries we're entering on the sales side to which product features we're building. And what that made it, that third point is really important, because even though I was CEO of the company, my decision wasn't necessarily the right one. We always focused on what is the right decision analytically, not what Nick wants or somebody else senior wants. And that allowed us to have for lack of a better word, a consensus-driven framework around truth.
Awesome. As a marketer who preaches iteration and using data to validate your approaches, I'm a big fan of that approach. But let me ask you, you rebuilt 80% of as I guess you call it the surface area, right? The visible part of
Yeah.
IdeaScale.
And
And
a
of
lot,
course,
and about 50% of the invisible parts that the users don't
of
see.
course. How do you decide what to kill, what to keep, and what to salvage as part of this?
Okay, so there's a term called dog fooding in
Yeah.
product, which you may have heard, and you can apply it towards burgers or software. And it's use your own product, eat your own. If you're making McDonald's, you're making burgers. Somebody senior at McDonald's should be taste testing those burgers. And the same was true at IdeaScale. What we did was we started. One of the things I enforced was everyone in our company, whether you're a junior engineer, whether you're a marketer, whether you're me, should be in our software every day. And as we spent more and more time in our software, we discovered, hey, this is annoying. We can't figure this out. I, as the CEO, couldn't figure out where this button was. And that's a problem because if your own employees don't know how to use your product or don't like your product, your customers are going to be a million times more confused. So to answer your question, because we all of a sudden were spending a lot more time using our own product, we were identifying things that weren't bugs, but were annoyances. They made our product less awesome. And so we just added it. Hey, this is a problem. It's confusing. Let's add it to a list and go fix it as soon as there's capacity to do.
Brilliant. I love it. The content engine that Crowd Tamers run, where we do content marketing for people, is based off of this podcast. And I did this podcast for 6 months, and then I went, I bet other people could find this type of content creation useful. So it's the same idea, right? You dog food it, and then as I learn, either through my podcast or through client work, something new that works, it ends up rippling across everything. One benefit to a service agency is I don't have to write software to make changes in process. I just write a new checklist, and the team can roll it out. But I think this actually gets us to the point of speed of change, speed of delivery, and why in the kind of pre-call chat you mentioned you switched from being CEO running a company, whatever, tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and you went, nah, man, I'm going to go back and start building myself. Well, a lot of the ideas that were working at IdeaScale, I was hearing you talk about as you were building the new things you're working on now. And the two of them that we were talking about was Content Hurricane and Brief Buddy. And those are both, I think you're taking some of those ideas we were talking about of there's a pain or something that like everybody knows sucks, I want to do it better, or I have a particular problem, so I'm going to go ahead and write a solution, see if other people do too. Tell me a bit about why you decided, as you're charting your own course, why Content Hurricane? Why Brief Buddy? Why not any one of a million other possible ideas?
Sure. So, two things have fundamentally changed for me personally and in the world that led me to making this big transition. Number one is, look, I'm not 22. I've actually gained some skills over the last 10 or 20 years of my career where I actually know why stuff works or why certain things are good, why certain things are bad. When you actually run a company, whether you're a CEO or a manager, or even a junior person, if you work for a while, you understand kind of the challenges people face in the business world. So I'm a little bit older, wiser, a few more gray hairs. So that's reason number one, where I think I'm smarter today and I know business problems and I can go solve them. The second is obviously this AI revolution where it makes it a lot easier for people to build products as solo founders rather than requiring an entire team of people to do. And I'll give there's a piece of software I built last week in about 30 or 40 hours of work that by myself as a non-engineer that historically would have taken a team of 5 or 6 people probably several months to build. So that factor that I'm wiser, I have some ideas, and now through AI, I can build and release this stuff really quickly is what led me to try making this change to be a more entrepreneurial attempt to start something new. And to answer the second part of your question about why Brief Buddy and why Content Hurricane, they're both aimed at SMBs, both marketers and agencies and marketing agencies, and they try and solve two problems. Number one is they're stupid simple to use. They all have 3 buttons and there's really not a lot of options because one of the things I always found frustrating was I had to, every time I hopped on a new CRM, a new piece of software, a new accounting system, there's an entirely new menu to learn. There's 4,000 different settings. I don't want to deal with that. I just want value created. I want to press a couple buttons and stuff to happen. So that's number one. The 2 products that we've released so far are very simple. They take less than 30 seconds to learn and use. And if you want, I can give a demo on just how easy it is later on this call. And then the second thing is price point. So me as an individual, both when I was running a company and now as an individual founder, I hated the idea of needing to pay somebody $100 a month for a piece of software that I, as a non-engineer, can write in 10 minutes. There's all these social media posting platforms. They charge you like 20 to $100 a month. I'm like, I can write a piece of code that does this in 20 minutes. Why am I paying somebody else $100 a month? That is unfair. That's extracting value from customers. So I'm like, let's rebuild this for $1 a month or $5 a month, make it much more affordable and accessible to millions or hundreds of millions of people around the world.
I love that. That is a change I've been seeing as the of writing software has approached. It's not zero, but it's coming real close. The need to charge whatever.
Can I rephrase it? So it's not just that the need to people don't charge a lot for software because they need to. It's because they can. If I'm a business and I can force you to pay $99 a month because you can't go anywhere else, you're going to pay me $99 a month or have nothing, right? Or do it manually.
Part of it also is like the cost of making software. As you mentioned, 5 to 6 people for 6 months. Like you've got to charge something to recoup that. As opposed to
most companies, like most of the enterprise grade companies, they built the software 10 years ago. They don't need to be charging $100 a month or $10,000 a month or whatever their price points are. They don't need to, but they can because you're stuck in their ecosystem or you like their software or because there's not good alternatives. So it's not a need anymore for most companies. Some of the AI companies are a little bit different because they're spending billions of dollars on research, but most of the software companies, especially let's use some of the marketing technology companies, don't need to be charging anywhere near. They've already made their money. They're charging you a lot because they can. And you're willing to pay.
And you're willing to pay because alternatives are few. I get that. I've found there's a whole suite of software that I will just one shot or maybe two shot have Claude write and be like, there, done, cool, next. There's an AI training program called Gauntlet, run by Austin Allred, and the first project he has you do is write a copy of Hemingway app, which is like a grammar detection program. And I had maybe 3-4 months before I ever heard of Gauntlet done the same, but not because I was trying to be cheaper than Hemingway, but because I disagreed with some of Hemingway's priorities. And I was like, let me just, for my own team, let me write a piece of software and use that for us to, one, write grammar the way I think it should be done, but two, also make content that AI doesn't determine is AI written. So that if we're making content for us or for a client, like it still reads as a human. And it took, I think it was a one dev, but it took him better part of a year and a half to write and then ship and then grow and scale. Or Grammarly, which is nowadays you can also basically copy Grammarly in a matter of a few minutes because there's open source codecs and you stitch together 2 or 3 things and there you go, Bob's your uncle. So that kind of change is super disruptive to the point where whenever I need to scrape a website now, it's honestly fastest to just not even use my code from the last time I wrote a scraper. Just go to Claude, make the PRD and say, I need to scrape this website, do it. And it will make all the tweaks for me rather than try to look at the code and say, if I need this is the div name instead of this and you do this instead of this. You know.
100% agree, right? Yeah, and I've been through that scraping exercise myself where I changed some Zillow scraping code to some Reddit scraping code. Those days are gone, thankfully.
Yeah, definitely. It is wild what AI is doing. I got to ask you as we're diving into this topic a bit, what's your tech stack? How do you like to build?
Sure. Again, there's 2 things I've released. One where I had a technical co-founder who did 90% of coding and I did about 10%. And for the Brief Buddy, which I wrote entirely by myself last week, the tech stack right now is I'm using Cursor with a mix of the underlying models for the actual coding. I'm using Vercel for the deployment. I'm using Supabase for the database. And I'm using Google and Facebook OAuth for the ability to log in. So that way you don't have to type in your email password. You can just click sign in with Google.
Get that.
And then there's a bunch of underlying kind of specific languages and technologies, but that doesn't really matter because you can swap Python for Go, for Next, whatever you want.
Yeah. Interesting. If you have not tried Claude Code, I highly recommend Claude Code on their Max plan is, to me, tremendously better than using Cursor.
So it is. Yeah, I've played around with a bunch of the different underlying models, and I absolutely agree. Claude's underlying model is a lot smarter at coding. At least for my purposes right now, what I'm trying to do is develop, as I said, things that are very simple from the end user's perspective. So I often don't need to rely on more complex models for the tasks that I'm doing today.
Gotcha. I find for what I'm building these days, Lovable as my front end because you can make very simple, clean enough UIs. And then all the back end bits, I just have Claude Code, and then have syncs it back over to
Oh
local.
yeah, and of course GitHub is the repo. I assumed that to be the case.
Yeah. People do still use GitLab. It's a growing and thriving company. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm not enough of a developer to have an opinion on that. I'm asking because tomorrow, from when we record this, which will be several months in the past by the time we release this, I'm doing the workshop for Founder Institute for MVPs for non-technical founders. And I'm telling everybody either use Claude Desktop or Claude Code as the way you write your product. But Cursor is a
Yeah, and
tool.
Replit is great too. I did a course with them just for fun over the weekend. It was like a 5-hour long course. It was very interesting to understand how you can actually build code and do it thoughtfully rather than just vibe code something and it works, but you have no idea why it's happening.
Definitely, that is a good PRDs, good base documentation on how you want this all to work. Means you have way more control over what your outcome is, and you're like, hey, I know what's going on. Definitely the first 2 or 3 products I made, they were purely vibe coded. And then at the end of the project, I'm like, I want to add one feature, but I don't know how. It's a mess. All right, yeah, cool. So let me ask you then. You've gone from building this big thing, shipping on your own. I have opinions on this, but I want to ask your thoughts first. Founders these days looking to build a product, what do you need if you have an idea to be able to build something that is investable?
Let me flip the question. Do you need it to be investable? Once upon a time, the reason you needed venture capital was because you needed to pay for an army of engineers and marketers, and it's going to take you 9 months to build something, and you need to pay 9 months of salaries and rent for a team of 20 people. So you needed venture capital, right? And you knew that you would lose money for years and years. Today, with whether you call it AI or just a better scalable tech stack where you can outsource a lot of the back-end infrastructure to other technologies, whether that be Versa, whether that be Google Cloud, whatever that is, the cost of developing things has decreased so much that you may often not need any venture capital or raise any capital because you can just self-fund. And there's an entire philosophy that is actually better, not only because you don't waste time, fundraising, but that you also own 100% of your company.
Yeah, you neatly stepped around my trap because that is where I
didn't see it as a trap. It was I have friends who are raising. I have a friend who just raised $50 million at some absurd valuation recently, but that's because his business model is predicated on a decade of losing money, not be from a development side, but from a marketing side. And that's a conscious decision he's made. He's a very smart guy, but you're not forced into that decision the way you were 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah. And I do think if you have an idea, one, there's a guarantee. I've mentored now almost 6,000 founders through Founders Institute. There's a guarantee that your idea isn't going to be what ends up solving an actual need, right? You have a thing in your head, you put it out, the market goes, meh. And then you pivot, you twist, you find, this is the actual feature that people care about. This is what my product actually was. So the faster you are able to grab that idea and then build it, you might discover, I've got an AI product we've launched. I launched one and sold one 2 years ago, 2.5 now. But we've got one we're launching right now. And it's 3 people, right, pulling it together. And we've gotten it to where it works, and it can scale up to, I would guess, probably 10 clients at a relatively high ticket, like SMB offer, before I think the wheels start to come off the wagon. And so it is cool. We'll get it to where we've got 5 or 6, and then we'll see either do we self-fund this out of the profits to re-architect it in a sensible way, or do we then go and say, hey, I need $1.5 million, right? Go take a seat around there, where we go. But to validate an idea, prove it's needed, and show traction to an investor these days, I don't feel like many people raise with a slide deck anymore. I think people raise with an AI MVP that does just enough. And the problem with AI code, if you're not technical, is it's very fragile because you didn't write it, you don't know how it works, and then if you touch anything, it might all blow up.
I literally had that experience this morning. I was building my third one, which is a LinkedIn post scheduler, and I moved some buttons around, and the entire menu broke. Thankfully, I'm technical enough where the AI is telling me to do X. I was able to identify that the AI is wrong here. My human intelligence is actually a little bit smarter. So I told the AI, you're wrong. This is the actual problem. Go fix this.
Yes, and that comes with experience too. I had maybe 2 or 3 hour long argument with Claude Code over the weekend. I'm trying to connect MCP servers to Claude Code to enable a bunch of stuff. And it decided to centralize all the keys and API, like auths and everything, into one file because that's better security practice. And then nothing worked because the MCP servers expect a different architecture. And so after going back and forth for hours, I went, no, do it my way because. And then finally it does, which is, it's weird. As a programmer, you just go, I'm going to make this. But as an AI, I don't know, coach, mentor, boss, something, like you have to persuade the AI to do things your way sometimes because it goes, this is better. And you go, I don't care. Do it my way. Okay. If you're talking to a founder these days, right, you've got the investor's mindset. They're looking to build something. The AI world is a terrifying whirl of change and updates and things that were good a year ago are entirely thrown away now. How the heck do you build something that is scalable, survivable, that's going to make even a 2 year course for somebody to say, I'm building a company, it's making me money, and maybe I want to get some investment from somebody to scale it up?
Sure. So I think I'll three ideas on how you make something that's useful, right? Number one is just as a technical point, take infrastructure that is scalable. Don't run a piece of software off your desktop. You do that. And I'm aware of at least one person that did. I was actually running a small MCP server for social media posting off my desktop about 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, this is stupid. I'm going to stop doing this. Not for anybody else, just for my own use, right?
Just for you. I get it. Yeah.
The second is realize that there's the types of AI software you don't want to build. Right? There's lots of people that are building software that is either built on top of fragile models or they're trying to compete on a foundational model basis. And that's really hard because if you build something on top of a specific feature of Claude 1 and they switch to Claude 2.5, that breaks. Or conversely, if you're trying to compete against Claude or OpenAI or something and you're building foundational models, it's really easy to fall behind in the foundational model arms race, right? If you're relying on your model to be smarter than everybody else's model, that's a really tough fight to win. It's not impossible, but there's 4 or 5 players that are dominating that space. And if you want to compete against them, you have to be ready for a perpetual battle. And then third is a more practical piece of advice is there's needs that are consistent and AI is just a way to solve them over time. So regardless how AI evolves, you still will need to eat tomorrow. You'll still need to eat a year from now. Or for a business, a restaurant business will still need to procure its ingredients. A employer will still need to pay their employees. So these are needs that remain constant over time, but how we solve them changes. As a silly example, 50 or 100 years ago, employees were paid in cash. 30 years ago, employees were paid in check. Today, most employees in the United States are paid via direct deposit, and a small subset of them are paid via direct deposit to crypto accounts where you're paid day by day on a crypto, like almost moment by moment basis. You work today, you don't have to wait 2 weeks. Here's your paycheck sent to your crypto account. So the need to pay people has not changed over time. The method at which money is transmitted has changed. And that's true for a lot of things. And AI doesn't really change that. It just gives us more novel ways to address existing continuous or perpetual needs.
That's a very good point. And I think the opportunity in finding what's going on that's changing a established continual need and saying, how do I get ahead of that is...
How do I address it? How do I get ahead of it? But also, how do I, again, this sounds very silly, but solve a problem that people have. And some problems are temporary, right? Like you break your leg, you need a cast. That's a problem today, but hopefully that's not going to be a problem 8 weeks from now, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of problems, it's really important to understand, are not problems just today, but they're perpetual problems that will persist for years, decades, centuries, perhaps. And good businesses are predicated or founded on solving those continuous or perpetual problems.
That is finding the leverage point where this is a continual need, but the way we address it's about to change or has changed. Like that's a cheat code to building something that will stick around. And I think it is easy to think that technology is the answer to everything. The fact that there are still tens of thousands of businesses in the U.S. with, for example, a fax machine, right? Or almost every service business I know, They maybe have a website, but it's probably very out of date. They've got a Facebook page that's probably more like current. Google reviews is what kills or makes their business succeed. Just that. And word of mouth, right? That there are still businesses that do a couple million a year, plumbing businesses, where, yeah, here's a business card, and my van has its phone number on the side, and that's literally all I do. And you're like, oh no, AI can show up and fix that. No, you can't fix that problem for them. What problem do they have you can fix? I was mentoring a startup just the other day that is exactly in that. They were trying to show up and provide a service business with a new upsell opportunity. And I'm like, these guys are either busy enough or they don't want your thing. Like plumbers, very frequently, if you're a lead generation agency, the plumber's like, I don't want your service. I can't take more clients anyway. Or they're not in a growing business space, so they can't afford your services. You've got to find the opportunity you can solve for somebody. So that's a good point. Okay, so you've got AI is changing the cost of delivery. Why does software not end up become just like anything I want has one chat interface and Cursor or Claude or OpenAI or whatever just sits on my desktop. I tell it something and it orchestrates all of it in the background magically for me. Is that where we're going, or is something else going to be happening as we're trying to succeed in business?
I think eventually we'll be there, but there's two things. One of which is a technological limitation, one which is a human limitation. So the technological limitation, you mentioned things like MCP, Model Context Protocol, which is basically an adapter, right? It allows, for your non-technical listeners, it's an adapter that allows Claude to talk to Facebook or talk to Amazon search or talk to your phone, whatever. So we're heading to the point where these AI chatbots can go do things for you because they have all these wires that will plug into other applications or physical robotics or your house's heating system. But we're not quite there yet because for an adapter to work, something on the other side has to be willing to accept the adapter, right? You may have the greatest plug in the world, but if your wall doesn't have an outlet, it doesn't really help. So that's number one. There's a technological limitation both on what the AIs themselves can do, but also what applications are willing to talk to AIs, or what applications, what robots, etc. Does your Roomba talk to Claude right now? Probably not, because Roomba just hasn't implemented that technology. And then the second is a human thing that I think a lot of folks underestimate, which is a lot of people don't know what they want. And it's a very fundamental human thing, right? You're hungry. Imagine you're hungry today and your wife asks you or your husband asks you, what do you want? And a lot of people will say, I don't know. I say that all the time. And that's even more true in a work context. Let's imagine I'm running this content hurricane out of this startup and I want to grow my business. That's a very ambiguous, amorphous goal. I can't just tell an AI grow my business. We're pretty far away from it being able to interpret that today. I need to give it a command. Okay, I want to design an inbound organic marketing campaign, or I want to design a paid advertising campaign on TikTok targeting this subsegment. That required a lot of cognitive pre-processing on my side before I could tell an AI what to do. And that's something that is really effective if you are already on top of your game. You've already done all the content pre-processing, but that's the top 1 or 2% of like business executives who have that level of, the term is called agency, no pun intended. 98% of people aren't like that. And they want something that is simpler, more human, and more discreet rather than something that does it all, because that's overwhelming to people. It gives them too much choice. Think of it like the diner menu. When you go to a diner menu, it's scary to see those 1,000 items on the diner menu, right? The average person just wants a McDonald's like menu where there's 7 items. You know what they are. You're going to go to your go-to menu item every single time, right? Mine's Big Mac. I'm not looking at item number 55 on a McDonald's menu, and I'm certainly not looking at item number 600 on a typical American diner menu.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's fair enough. I think what was it, years ago now, I think in the 70s, they ran a study where people tend to buy washing machines with more buttons, but they tend to be happier using washing machines with fewer ones.
I just bought a dryer recently for a rental property. It's got 2 buttons. It's got the temperature button, which basically switches between hot, eco, and something else, and an on button.
There you go. There you go. That is what people want. Is I think they want the feeling that they got some choice, but they don't want to be overburdened with.
Yeah, it's cognitive. The technical term is a cognitive load, right? Every time you make a decision, it requires effort. There was the old joke that when President Obama was in office, he had his suits picked out for each day of the week so that he didn't have to think about which suit he wore on Monday versus Tuesday versus Thursday, because that would absorb a small amount of cognitive load or exercise on him, that he wanted to save that mental effort for making world-changing decisions.
Gotcha.
Right. And that's true
the
in
same
business.
reason why Zuckerberg wears the same gray shirt and why Steve Jobs wore the same turtleneck. It was all the idea of, hey, put this load out of your mind. I solved it the other way by just saying whatever I pick out of my closet is what I'm wearing today. And sometimes that's regrettable. Hey, I get dressed in the dark. I don't know what I'm wearing until I get into the office. Okay, awesome. So somebody's looking to build right now. They're a founder. They've got some idea that they're super hot to create. The first thing you would tell them if they're looking to build organic inbound content, right? Something like what Content Hurricane does. Google has the EEAT metric, which they claim is still important.
It still is, right? But go on. Yeah.
So they want to build inbound marketing. They want to have a way to create demand coming to them. What would you recommend they do for their first 60 days to start to build this practice of, I want to be visible with my idea either after I built it or while I am building it?
Sure. So that's exactly it. You want to put you hinted at it. You want to make a presence before your product is even out there, because otherwise, once your product is out there, people won't find it for 60 days or 180 days or a year, maybe. So the very first thing you should do is create a website. That's basic. Pick a brand name, pick a name, create a website. Number two, you need to have content on your website, right? And content can be video content. It can be blog content, which is obviously what Content Hurricane does. But you need to have content, and you need to have content that achieves three things. Number one, it has to be high quality, so Google rewards it. Number two, it has to be continuous, so you can't just make 10 blog entries and then forget and then go back to building your product for the next 3 months. You have to be continuously posting stuff because there is a strong recency. And number three, it needs to be repurposable. So if you write a blog entry, you need to be able to create a video off of it, a LinkedIn post, a Twitter post, or conversely, if you have a great Twitter post that goes viral, you need to be able to turn that into a blog, a video, a YouTube teacher video. So you want to have this notion of repurposability on everything that you're doing in building that web presence.
Awesome. All right. So I think we've already gone into it, but let me ask. If people want to find out more about you, about Content Hurricane, any of that, where do they go?
Sure.
Where do they go look for you?
For me, best way is LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I respond to 100% of messages. For Content Hurricane, our website is contenthurricane.com. Totally free to try with no credit card. And the quick pitch for Content Hurricane is it's the easiest, simplest blog writer out there. And it actually does two things really well. Number one, it writes really high quality content. So it's not like generic robotic AI sounding stuff. It's beautifully formatted. It can go into any website you want, whether you Webflow, WordPress, Shopify, whatever. And number two, it is just way simpler to use. So there's a lot of blog writers out there, and you can go ask ChatGPT to write a blog, but it's often really complicated. You have to iterate back and forth. We took all that away. We said, tell us what you want to write about. Tell us how many articles you want, when you want it to post, click go. And a minute later, you just have this beautiful stuff that magically appears and is really simple to use.
Phenomenal. All right. If you haven't already and you're watching this video right now, be sure to like and subscribe to this so you see more content from great entrepreneurs like Nick. Nick, thanks so much for your time today. Had some great insights and some great thoughts from you. I really appreciate it. And I'll see everybody who's listening next week. Take care, y'all. Bye.